Hey all, I've been getting a lot of questions on how I flip my cockpit in certain builds and the different ways you can flip your cockpit, so I've decided to do a little video demonstration today showing all the variations I've come up with and how to do it. First up, we're going to go through the initial discovery, its variations and the different options there. So first, I usually do start with knuckle legs as they're the easiest to get cockpits flipped on without it colliding with other parts. I always start with a RFZ ASP, just normal 6-point spacer. And for this, the orientation of the arrows does seem to matter. I've had successes getting it to work with a few different orientations, but these are the ones that I usually use each time I do this, just to anchor myself. So first of all, you're going to want the big arrow down and the small arrow forward. Do that again. Big arrow down, small arrow forward. And then from that, either side you want, you're going to add an RFZ ZAR, and that is going to be with the big arrow up and the little arrow back. If you want to do this on the other side, get it in position, it's going to be big arrow up and little arrow forward. From this, with the initial discovery, I placed a generator on the front, a cockpit to the side of that, and then, most important, you change the spacer that's already there. So you come down to the same spacer, and with this you want to, one, select a joint with your left thumbstick and then rotate with the X button. You're going to alternate this until it flips. So left, X, and it's done. This one seems to be a quick one, so it does it straight away. And this is one variation that you can do. What we came up with a few days after discovering this originally is if you remove the pit and the generator, I discovered that you can put the cockpit directly on the spacer. Seems a no-brainer right now, but at the moment we didn't quite think of that. And then you can change the spacer again, left thumbstick, X, and it will flip the cockpit upside down. With this, you could then move on to changing the parts themselves to things like a cipher, and then change the spacer to a generator. And this is the initial build. Now we're going to get slightly more advanced. Remove these. And we're going to start with the second discovery that was made a week or so into the flip pits. And this is going to have the spacer backwards, big arrow down, little arrow backwards. You are next going to add the ZAR directly onto the back of this with the big arrow down and little arrow backwards again. And here is where it gets spicy, because you can put a generator onto the back of that in any direction you want. So for this demonstration, I'm going to put the generator on and have it straight up. And then on top of that, I'm going to add a cockpit. And this is where it gets interesting, as you can change the generator. You can usually change it for any generator, but I like to change it for the same generator. And just like that, the cockpit will turn backwards. And this is where we get really spicy, because if you then change the ZAR to a rotor assist part, you then have the ability, when you change the ASP on top of the legs, to turn the pit on its side, while also being backwards. Now, to do this again, you would need to change the rotor back to its original position, and like a ratchet, you will be able to change the asp and rotate it yet again. And now you have a backwards pit that is upside down. You can also, if I change this back to normal, back, move everything, add this arrow back, again, big arrow down, little arrow forward, backwards. You can, if you wish, put the generator on so the connection points come off sideways, and then onto that you can place any cockpit, but I like to go with C100 when doing this demo. And then just like before, you can change the generator for the same generator, and it will flip the pit backwards and upside down. Now from there, you can change the ZAR to a rotor, and just like before, you can change the asp for another asp and rotate the cockpit to the underside. Again, if you need to rotate it yet again, you would reset the position of the rotor, go back to the asp, and now you have a backwards cockpit on the side instead of it being upside down and backwards. Then, once you've finished putting it into the position that you'd like, you can change the parts out that you wish to useful parts, and then simply delete the middle one. Get rid of the rotor, and it is now much closer to legs and only requires 2 parts between the cockpit and the legs for it to be in any orientation you wish. Good luck. There is one extra way to flip your pit. Unfortunately, I figured this out and have not been able to figure it out ever again. And that is a backwards pit coming off the front of your hand, what I like to call the self-serve. Unfortunately, I've forgotten how to do this, and no matter how many times I try to replicate it, I have not been able to come up with a way to do this again. Anybody who can figure out how to do this, I encourage you to get in contact with me again, and I'll put up another video on how to achieve this as well. But until then, I'm the only one with this build. Get fucked.